I remember the stomach flutters before my first performance review and my first job out of college. To say I was overeager to perform is an understatement. I was grinding. I worked around the clock. I spent hours finessing my PowerPoints, took meticulous meeting notes, and never missed a deadline. Which is why I felt completely blindsided when I actually received my review. My boss sat me down and told me that I needed to work on connecting better with my clients and building relationships with them. Apparently, nobody knew anything about me. Building relationships with my clients, that's what they cared about? I couldn't understand when I was working so hard to deliver quality work. And I wish I could say I underwent some immediate transformation where I became some fabulous connector and lived happily ever after. But in truth, I didn't really know what to do, and I fumbled for a few more years. My clients were remote most of the time. I wasn't working with them, and I didn't know how to relate to them because they were so much younger than me. It was years later that I was pursuing my PhD, and like the old saying goes, research is me search. And my initial me search focused on burnout and work engagement because I knew what it was like to experience burnout. And what was surprising to me was that I always assumed that burnout was just the result of having too much work and feeling really depleted from too much work. But in fact, there's so many other factors that can play a role. And an important one was community and connection. People can be burnt out because they feel disrespected, unsupported, and disconnected from their colleagues. This stood out to me. I had always focused on work output and things that would produce actual revenue and quality work for a company. And this was conditioned by my years of schooling, where I was rewarded with good grades because I put in the effort and I worked hard. But in truth, work is full of real flesh and bone people who want to feel connected. And they do their best work when they feel like they're fully engaged, like their work truly matters, and like they're doing something bigger than just themselves. When the pandemic struck, as we all know, offices around the globe closed. And my colleagues and I started studying this transition into remote work-life balance, what it was like being in this new space. And this is where I really started to see the effect of connections, and loneliness really came front and center. It was more than struggling to, the fear of getting sick or juggling childcare. The isolation hit deep. People lost the casual interactions they had when they walked in the office. And what was interesting is that a deeper dive into the research showed that loneliness had been on the rise well before the pandemic. According to the U.S. Surgeon General, nearly 50% of U.S. adults experienced loneliness pre-pandemic, and that number continues to rise. So at this point, my me search shifted as I began to wonder about the effects of connections, especially in the context of work, and how that impacted people in remote interactions, if it stifled the way people were able to connect. So for my dissertation, I focused on research initially spearheaded by Dr. Jane Dutton on high-quality connections at work. And to understand high-quality connections, I want you to think back on the last time you had a positive connection with someone. Doesn't matter how long it was, could have been a friend, colleague, someone you met for the first time, but you felt more open with them. You felt like you truly cared. You felt mutually connected. And when you left, you felt a little more energized and uplifted. And it didn't necessarily need to be a happy experience. It could have been about something difficult and raw, but you felt more bound together. That's a high quality connection. And I was curious about whether having higher quality connections throughout the day led to higher levels of engagement at the end of the day. And what I found was fascinating. Yes, it did lead to higher levels of engagement, but it didn't matter how many interactions you had or how long you spent in those interactions. So if you spent your entire day having high quality interactions with different people, or just one high quality connection with one person, you still tended to feel more engaged. I was also curious about the way that people were interacting. I wanted to know if you needed to be in person, face to face, in order to have these deep, meaningful connections. Because previous researchers suggest that you do need to be in person in order to have those deep connections. So I asked people how they interacted. Were you in person and face to face? Were you video conferencing with the camera on? Or were you chatting through audio? And audio could be a phone call, it could be video conferencing with the camera off. And what I found was that there was no difference between in-person connections and video conferencing with the camera on. So in other words, if we're chatting face-to-face, or if we're chatting through video conference and we can see each other, we're able to connect in a similar way. Only audio interactions produce lower quality connections. And third, and this was surprising and something I wasn't even looking for, but the final thing I found was the effect of burnout. People who were burnt out, it had a tremendous effect on whether they were even able to engage in quality connections. And that does make sense because people who are burnt out tend to withdraw. Whereas people who are connecting, you need to put in that effort. So burnt out individuals had a hard time even making those high quality connections. So my research showed that having high quality connections is very important for engagement. And a recent study from McKinsey and Leanin.org found that about 60% of in-person workers, employees, tended to experience connectivity compared to fewer than 20% of remote and hybrid workers. So how do we build these connections in our remote environment or at all? So here's the advice I would have given 22-year-old me who was fumbling to make connections. Number one is expand, or aiming for more expansive dialogue. It helps you go beyond these polite greetings and helps you dig a bit more beneath the surface. And there are two ways that you can do this. One is to ask expansive, open-ended questions, and the other is to answer questions expansively. Asking expansive, open-ended questions encourages the other person to open up and share a bit more about themselves. Think about this as if you're talking to a child coming home from school. If you ask them, "How was your day?" the response will probably be,
For many, Switzerland is the most beautiful country in the world.
Exciting thing, or fun thing, or boring thing about your day, you're more likely to get a better answer. So
The villages look like they're straight out of a fantasy storybook.
"How was your weekend?" You're probably not going to get a great response. Try something like, "What was the highlight of your week?" And then ask for more. Probe a little deeper.
Brains reach remote and unexpected corners of the Alps.
You to open up and share more about yourself, and give someone else the opportunity to share more in return. For instance, if you're on a remote call, you're on a Zoom call with a remote team member, and
It's rugged terrain forces homes and buildings to be constructed in surprising spots.
You could just say what they're expecting, which is, "Yeah, for you." Or you can answer a bit more expansively. So, for instance, I could say, "Well, my
Nature
neighbor
reveals
was
its
this morning
wonders
when I was
in
walking
every
my dog,
part of the country.
wearing my big puffer jacket when it was in the mid-50s. Is it cold by you?" And yes, this is real. This is me and my dog in the mid-50s.
This documentary will take you through Switzerland's most captivating places, from hidden gems to its most stunning cities.
They're more open to sharing about their own. Number two is overlap, or finding things in common. As human beings, we like to feel like we belong, and having things in common with one another helps us
Louder,
bond.
Brunnen.
When I was younger, I used to think that being in the same life stage was a prerequisite.
Nestled in the heart
for having
of the
things in common,
Bernese
but it's
Alps,
just not true.
this valley
If you
dazzles
both
travelers.
have people, or you both love country music, You both went guerrilla trekking in Uganda.
It was carved during the last ice age, leaving behind vertical cliffs as the glaciers melted.
Commonalities, but asking questions and using the visual cues you have, even if it's just through their video screen, can help.
The village of Lauterbrunnen, resting at the base of the valley, is seen as one of the most beautiful on Earth.
To learn more about you and find commonalities with you. So especially if you're a remote worker, think of your background as a conversation starter. You can have
houses have sloped roofs, flower-filled balconies, and churches with simple architecture.
Anything that could prompt conversation and engagement. All of these things can help people find things in common and help you bond. Third,
the Lutschein River winds through the valley, passes the village, and flows toward Interlaken.
The other person that you're conversing with. If you're on your phone or scrolling through your computer and the other person's talking to you, it signals that
waterfalls fed by melting snow and rain are at their most impressive in spring and summer.
On the flip side, you're listening attentively, you're nodding, you're asking questions related to what they're asking, what they're talking about. You're laughing at their jokes.
In the lush meadows, cows graze freely, long used for milk and cheese production.
And these types of interactions, they energize people. They boost their self-esteem and they make them feel closer to you. So,
Grindelwald,
expand, overlap, and care. These are three things that can
located in the Grindelwald Valley. It sits beneath towering alpine peaks.
None of them are effective unless they are done authentically. And this is for most.
It began gaining fame across Central Europe during the golden age of mountaineering in the 19th century.
Listening, complimenting you, but really doesn't mean it, or asking you questions, but
surrounded by green meadows, dense conifer forests, and high cliffs, it feels truly alpine.
Emotions, or thinking of it as a checklist, but truly figuring out how to care.
Locals say the wooden houses, with their dark tones, offer a warm and inviting atmosphere.
If they don't care about connecting with others, their employees are likely to follow. On the other hand, if they expand, overlap, and care in an authentic way, that shows that it's important for their
in the warmer months, cows often roam the grassy fields nearby.
Members have an additional responsibility because their employees don't have those casual chats when they walk in the office or lunches where they happen to chit-chat with people. Leaders need to have a better pulse in their feet and be more intentional about setting.
Not far from the town center, a cable car leads to scenic viewpoints and mountain sports areas.
It's a great first step, but it's not enough. You really need to build in time to connect. That could mean holding a few minutes in the beginning of meetings to chit-chat.
Grindelwald First, a neighboring peak, is among the most popular spots for visitors.
With the leader and other team members or team members amongst themselves. Employing some kind of employee listening strategy could help you understand what your employees are truly feeling.
By the shores of Lake Lugano, this village has long served as a key stop for travelers moving between Switzerland and Italy.
As a leader, help signal that you are truly listening and trying to implement and act on their feedback. Creating polls and
it tumbles steeply down to the lake from the side of Mount Bray.
Their preferences is a great way to use the tools that you have to connect better. And if possible, having in-person meetings from time to time can help solidify relationships. There are so many ways that leaders can help.
The old quarter is a maze of narrow alleys, stone staircases, and covered walkways.
Use some kind of employee listening strategy so that they're gathering and acting on continuous feedback and to be intentional with your time together. The average person spends about a third of their life.
Many of the homes, built between the 18th and 19th centuries, line the water's edge.
We can do better. Let's do our part to connect a little more, engage a little more, and make work truly work for us.